back in the tent today with Rachel Scheinbein. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for making time. So we want to start with a little bit, who's Rachel? What does Rachel do? What makes you a super connector?
Super
and then
connector.
Some storytelling. So welcome.
Thank you. So just for some background, I'm a venture partner at CMEA. I was there for 5 years, investing mostly in energy startups, and I'm on 3 board seats for them. And then most of my time I'm spending angel investing in a very wide range, no theme, and very interested in women entrepreneurs. That's a focus. I still do some energy. I also do kind of socially good companies, and I have just a wide genre of things that I'm investing in now personally.
Cool. And so tell us a little bit, how did you end up in the investment?
That's a good story because I was always in operations. I worked at Intel most of my career, and I was leaving Intel and I had no idea what I was going to do, and I thought I'll probably just go to a startup and something, maybe environmental, water was my original background, or part something in solar because of the semiconductor. I wasn't sure, but that's kind of where I was focusing. And someone I knew was at CMEA as a part-time, and he said, hey, they're looking for someone like you. And I said, venture? Those guys are kind of jerks, and I'm not really a finance person. Like, I'm an operating, company person. But that was my first impression. And then I interviewed, and I thought, oh, I kind of like this. I like the variety and I feel like we're paid to learn from brilliant entrepreneurs who come in and teach us, and we get to partner with. So it turned out to be a really great fit.
And so, how long have you been there?
I was there 5 years.
So you've left?
Yeah, as of April 1st, I went part-time.
So is that what it means, a venture advisor is part-time?
Yeah, venture partner.
So do they bring you in on like partner meetings, or just
CMEA is not really doing a lot of new investing. They're towards the end of their summit fund, and I am mostly just holding board seats for them, not looking at anything new. Yeah.
And then so now you've transitioned into the angel investment world. Does angel investment almost mean like that you want to be a little bit more involved with companies, and you want to have a little bit more personal interaction with the founders and what they're building on? And
I mean, my passion in investing has always been involvement with the companies because I came out of an operating role, and I just really enjoy being connected with the entrepreneur and advising as I can. And you can do a lot of that as a venture. You're on a board seat. You're taking a board seat, and you might be hiring CEOs or helping with the team or whatever else, or advising. And since I had an operations background, which was rare, I'd even get a manufacturing strategy. It could be very, very broad. Angel investing, I have yet to take a board seat, so my interactions are, I would say, less formal, and it's up to the entrepreneur and how they want to engage me. I usually get involved because I think I can somewhat be helpful, but I also know there are some venture capitalists will say my best companies are the ones who really didn't need me. They took my money and they were just fantastic. But and there are some that need less handholding, or there's some that in the beginning I'm really engaged, or they're even sometimes emotional support because it's a really hard thing to do, and sometimes lonely in the beginning. And then maybe they get going and more momentum, or they get advisors that are really know their business and really deep, and then they more have relationships there, and they call me for an intro every twice a year. So it just varies a ton.
Does the process change? Is this process different as far as from when you meet to writing a check?
You mean venture versus angel?
Yeah.
Totally.
Right?
I mean, it's just my mindset too. There's something different about investing your own money, of how you approach it, and for me it's actually means it's less formal, it's less about crazy detailed structure due diligence, which venture is really important and thorough because you're holding other people's money. And to me, my angel investing, for good or for bad, maybe it's going to turn out to be an expensive education instead of a great investment.
Hobby, right?
Yeah, but for me, it's more about who I want to work with, teams I want to be part of, people I want to support, maybe other angels I want to invest with. So I have a lot more nuanced reasons for doing it. I don't want to lose all my money.
Sure.
But no. I have more kind of subtlety reasons, where in venture it was, you're only do it if you're gonna make money. The other things are that's not what you're paid to do. You're paid to make money for your LPs, and that's it.
And then where's the deal flow coming from? Are you meeting these people, or warm intros, or again other angels?
All over. Yeah, people. So variety. People know I'm really interested in funding women entrepreneurs. So often, either other angel funds, early seed stage companies will bring me in. Oh, Rachel could be helpful on this. We should write her. I know she's interested. Or, some are friends, some are people I've worked with, some are my husband and I do some of it together. So he'll send me stuff, or I met something I think you'll like, I meet something I think he'll like, or he'd be a better advisor than I would. So we have a pretty good network, and just people kind of come to us and know us.
Only local?
Let's see, are any of my companies in venture? I had one in Detroit, and I still have one in LA. In my angel, I have one in New York. I'm invested in a company in Phoenix, but mostly local, and all definitely in the U.S. Just especially because we're getting involved early. We have done some where you're Skyping with a person, but they're going to move here or something like that. But it's
I learned that lesson the hard way, that investors don't want to invest in non-U.S., at least incorporated and based companies.
Yeah, you want to at least know them, kind of. It could be if it were someone I knew well who happens to live in another, London or Israel or somewhere, that I had a connection to, perhaps.
Sure.
But harder to do.
And so, what do you love about it, and what do you hate about it?
I love the PITME. You called me a super. I don't know if PEMO came up with that word.
No, we read it somewhere.
Oh, really? A super connector.
Yeah.
Great. It's awesome.
I can identify it because I'm about a super connector.
Yeah, So I'll say two things I love, if you'll allow me. One, to me, it is generically the trite thing to say, but about the people that I'm paid to learn, and these people are putting everything on the line, and I'm getting to kind of attach myself onto something like that. And sometimes it's things that I really believe in, that I want to see work. Sometimes it's just I just want to see that person, be successful and supported.
Say the second one.
Okay, so the second one, the connection thing, I don't know, this isn't necessarily what drives me, but I do love when it's someone hired someone I know, or someone helped, or they sold to someone, or they got a job because I connected, and you're I
connected this morning a company with an investor, so
it's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
So, but I would say more, I like seeing things whoa, there was nothing there a year ago, and now she's doing this much in sales, and she has a whole team, and she's on the cover of these magazines, or whatever. It's just cool to kind of attach yourself and be a part of that.
On the first point, though, is that dangerous to get emotionally involved and saying, okay, I want this person to succeed?
Well, that's a difference between venture to me and angel in a way. It's I can choose what I want to care about because it's my own money. So, screw you if you don't like.
It's not play money. So.
No, but it's also a little bit of, well, you said what I don't like. To me, life is too short to work with people I don't want to work with.
Yeah, of course.
And that's, so you're right. It's sometimes you also get involved for the project. There's some. It's not like I'm friends with all my CEOs, or that I love them, or want to even be friends with them. It's more maybe I believe what they're doing,
like you said, maybe someone's working on something that has to do with energy in sub-Saharan Africa, and it just pulls at you, the project or the vision.
Right.
Not so much again.
Sometimes, and I've already had some of my angel team fail. That's part of what we do. Like we have to, if you get into it thinking there will be no failure, it'll be terrible. Like sometimes things don't work out, or sometimes things take longer, or they get momentum, but it's just not, they're just kind of coasting for a few years, they're profitable, but they vary so much. So I would say emotional attachment, there's some, but it's not, sometimes it's just, or they raise $6 million and I don't talk to them for 3 years, and then they call me up and like, we're selling and here's your check. It's just, nice. But sometimes it's not like you're that engaged for all of them.
Interesting, that's funny. 3 years and you get a check.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the nice version of it.
Surprising.
Yeah.
It's hot, be careful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, the show is really designed to educate through examples, so lessons through stories is what we call it. And so I mentioned some of the topics that we try to cover, and again, the idea really is to, for example, show people that failure is okay, that transparency is okay, that you need to collaborate, that competing and competition are different things. But maybe I read something about board meetings on your blog or on your site about convincing the board members, but tell me a funny board story.
Yeah.
If you can talk about
Yeah. Let me try to think. I mean, the boards it's been such a evolution for me, and some of it is kind of learning as I'm going, things where I started out at CMEA 5 years ago, had never done any real investing, and I then got to be a board observer, and I sit in the back, and then I started realizing, I have a seat at the table, the whole lean in, and I was like, I'm just as educated as those people, and I'm also often, I just put it out there, I'm often the only woman in the room. But your point about negotiating, so let's see if I can think of
it doesn't have to be that.
A particular.
If you have a good story that you want to share.
Yeah, I have one. The boards. You're all in it to you want your companies to be successful, but there are points when you might be at odds with other investors because you have different needs and because of when you came in the rounds or whatever. And I do have one story. I'm not going to name names because if you don't mind, but
no problem.
But I had one. If you say a funny experience, I have one, and I respect this person immensely, and he's brilliant, and I learned a ton from him. And we had just finished a Series B. But he was then unhappy of what was going on with the company and wanted to change. He had put a lot more money than CMEA had in that Series B. We had led the A. And he wanted to retroactively change some terms, which turned out legally he couldn't do anyway. Yeah. But on the phone, I'm much younger, much less successful, and he basically stared yelling at me that we'll shut this company down, and I'll show you that we can do this, and and it was a holiday, and I was at home, and I was just like, whoa, what is up? This is this bravado thing I talked about. And I was a little bit stressed out, but I'm like, how can this guy do it? And the lawyers called me because I had a relationship with them after, and they're like, don't worry, Rachel. And the next meeting, I thought, oh great, I have to gear up and have my argument, and what am I going to say? And then the lawyers basically said, hey, you can't do this because of X, Y, Z, da, da, da. I was like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. Done. And I never had to really deal with it. Yeah, exactly. But we have one of my partners always says, he's like, you're an amazing negotiator because you just prepare more than anyone else. Because maybe I actually was more insecure about it, so then I would do all the work to make sure that I could be successful in negotiating and knew all the angles and what people would care about, and I feel like that's really important. Maybe
in a different life you were a lawyer?
And I don't think so. Although I thought about going into patent law out of engineering. That was my other career path. But you asked, talking about the connecting people. I'm a better negotiator when I have to have a relationship with the person going forward. If it's a one-time transaction, I hate it and I don't like it. But if I have to, I'm gonna have to work with this board, or like I've negotiated I have to negotiate with the team I'm investing in, but then I have to and that is a kind of negotiation that I'm best at.
Really, like as you were saying that, I realized that's actually like my biggest issue. Like if it's a one-off, like I can't even look at it that way, because then I'm really bad at like asking for stuff, or like I don't know. I feel like I don't want to be salesy.
Right, exactly. It's like a car, buying a car or something.
But
it feels awful.
If I know that the relationship has existed, and not that I have to have the relationship, then I'm much more prepared, diplomatic. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because that happens all the time, and I have other stories where you've negotiated hard for certain terms or certain valuation, but then the next week you're going to be at their first board meeting. So you have to balance, like, you don't want to create this antagonism. And I had that with one board where, right after we closed the deal, actually the CEO called and was like, quit your VC job, come work with us. And I'm like, hey, I'm your supporter at the firm, you better not recruit me. So that was kind of a fun, flattering, because we pressed the team hard and it was a recap and all this, but we came out of it liking each other, and to me that's a total sign of success.
That's awesome. So speaking of board meetings, is there a little bit of fluff at board meetings? I don't know why we're like stuck on board meetings.
Yeah, that's okay. Board's interesting how they work. It depends. My best CEOs that I personally liked. I know everyone has different styles they like working with, but I like really open and honest CEOs, and often I kind of know what's going on before the meeting. In a way, I don't like to go to a board meeting where 8 people with diverse interests in it are learning some fact for the first time, if it's something controversial. So the best CEOs are super communicative, super open, and so the board meetings ends up being a useful discussion, because it's the whole team working through something or advising, as opposed to just show me all your great numbers and we're out of here, because we already know that. We're so involved in the business and the CEOs kept us in, so it's not like this pony show,
Well, I guess if it's fluff if the numbers aren't great.
And you were asking about stories. I've also had the situation where like the COO came to me. I was an observer on a board that I eventually took over, but the COO came to me and was like, the CEO does, it's not working. He wouldn't tell my partner, who happened to be his 6'5", and I don't know, maybe he was intimidated, but he told me all this stuff.
That's cool.
And so then we were like, and it turned out there was things going on, and so boards, and they vary a ton.
I can imagine,
and it depends how the company's doing, and the company's doing badly, and it depends where everyone is in the fund and what they're bringing to the table. So there's a lot of, I think it's fun to me because the dynamics can be so interesting.
Have you had to fire anybody?
Yes. That's not fun.
I'm saying, you're talking about firing.
Yeah. I like hiring. I always join the hiring committee. The firing's not as great, but usually you realize you wish you had done it 6 months to a year earlier. And that's, you agonize about it for so long, and the board agonizes it, or one person's knew a year ago it should fire and the rest haven't come around, and it happens at the right time because that's when it happens, but it is, it's not fun, and it's expensive, because firing and hiring, taking time out of the company, and then the new person coming in has to get up to speed. It's a time-consuming thing, but usually I've never had it so far where it's like, I wish we had that CEO back. I've never ever felt that way, and we've brought in people that turned out to be much better. But and I had some. Probably everyone can tell you, some terrible founder story where you're negotiating for months and there's all this hurt feelings, and they're like, Rachel, you do it. The other board members volunteer you somehow, but that's not a fun part of our work, but it's usually, I really do believe, in the end, both sides are better off. even though it doesn't ever feel like that when it's happening. So yeah, but the hiring I really like. And another story, like I've also had hiring. I remember this one search process where the other VC liked the other CEO candidate better. But I was really like sure about the one we ended up hiring, and I stood up even though I was the more junior person on the deal, and then they like immediately like loved him and he was fantastic. But sometimes you also are like fighting for your person with conviction of people have more experience.
Totally.
Hiring's hard. I mean, in a startup in general.
Oh yeah, believe me.
Yeah, you can hire a lot of people who don't work out.
Do you ever get the itch to do your own startup?
I thought when I went into it, I always said when I started at CME, I'm like, we'll see in a year. I'll either go back to ops because that's my real passion, or I'll stay here, but I'll know either way in a year. And after a year, it wasn't clear. And then as it kept going, I thought, I sometimes meet a startup, and my husband will sometimes say, are you sure you don't want to go join that? Go join her or him? Like, you're really into this. That one, you just wrote a check last week, but are you sure you don't want to just go work for her? But mostly, I then am so addicted to the variety and a little bit of ADD.
Oh my God. So I don't know if you know this. I was part of Founder Institute early with Adeo.
Yeah.
And we were 4 guys working in a garage and launched like 400 companies while I was there. And I got to see, have this bird's eye view of hundreds of companies in different cities and hundreds of ventures. And so then I was like, you know what, maybe I need to have my own like success story. Because I was never in tech, I just kind of landed there. And then joined the company, arguably did somewhat well, I think, for myself or for the company. And after 9 months, I was like miserable. I had major ADD. I was miserable, I was bored. And so I was like, this isn't fun, like, and I guess I maybe like you, I don't see myself doing the same thing. And so I'd rather
the variety. But then the trade-off, what my quote is always, I always tell people, I know a little bit about a lot and not a lot about anything. They always tell me,
I pretend to know a little bit about a lot of things, but I don't ask me to write a line of code or don't like. I don't know, like I know my strengths and weaknesses now, but I definitely agree. But I mean, so where do you see yourself in like 5 years? Just angel investing?
I kind of said when I went part-time at CME, I'm like, I'll take 3 to 6 months and just like let new things come and incubate, and then something will kind of come out of it. And I describe my whole career, I always tell people that I'm strategically opportunistic, which means, so I'm not randomly find new things. I mean, going into VC, I would have never guessed that would be if you had asked me 3 years earlier, some people plan, like I really want to be an investor. I never was like that, but I know kind of the parameters of what's important to me, and then I'm open to a lot within that. And to me, the most, working with people that are smarter than I am, that I'm learning from, that I'm really engaged with. I want what we're working on to be interesting. I invest in some stuff that I'm like, I can kind of care less about that. But mostly for me, I have to, the content driven, that's why the energy stuff I was really passionate. I am passionate about that. So I'm not sure to answer your question, but I think I'll still be kind of investing more than probably an ops role, but I've got some interest, and every once in a while someone pings me with something interesting. I'm like, but I'm not quite ready to set my eyes on something yet.
I've had 3 job offers in the last month, and I believe and like all the projects. I like the people doing it. I know they're going to do really well, and yet I don't know.
It's not there yet. Yeah.
And I guess sadly for me, I had this moment. Have you seen Kingdom of Heaven? It's a movie, Orlando Bloom.
Oh, yeah.
You should watch it.
Okay.
It's a good movie. So there's a part where his father's about to die, and he says, he's talking to his son, and he says, what would you like me to carry on as a legacy, your legacy?
Yeah.
To honor you and the house. And so he says, I would like you to answer to the King of Jerusalem and work on the Kingdom of Heaven. which is where Muslims and the Christians live in peace, and it's a kingdom of consciousness. Well, you'll see it. And I still get goosebumps from it, because in that moment, I remember, I always wear these shirts, in that moment I was like, holy shit, this is 2,000 years ago, and I'm kind of trying to do the same thing. And I realized that this is not a job, which by the way is a problem. I didn't look at it as a business. So I spent my life saving getting this thing going. But this is like a legacy or like a lifelong mission,
Nice,
you know?
yeah.
And so now with this, you know, we have our educational component. We're doing this accelerator, so we're going to go on an 8-city tour to pick a team in every country to bring here. It's going to be an accelerator
I like
of accelerator.
That. Yeah.
And then the idea really for me, and I think part of this experience has been that I don't know if I could do the same thing. I'm really good at certain things, but I don't think I could do it. But being able to have an impact on that many people and learn from them, you know, which I'm still doing, and having an impact is something that I think somehow I signed up for, and it's like a lifelong
and you don't
thing.
know where it'll end up, which is kind of like being open.
I know one of the offers that I got a couple weeks ago is going to be $1 billion exit. I'm convinced, and if I was an investor, I would invest. But the money, like I was like, like I'm 36, just got married,
Congratulations.
you know, and do I really want to commit my life to the next 4 years to that, or 5 years, or whatever it is? And so far, like again, I haven't gotten to that point.
Yeah.
And this to me is fun, is interesting. I learned a lot, and then now, you know, we've created this program really, and I hope to have kind of an impact on entrepreneurship in the region.
Yeah.
And so the vision is that we want to do be a tie.
Oh,
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
Middle East.
Oh,
So
cool.
we're working on an angel group, the accelerator, content, events.
I love that. I ask entrepreneurs sometimes, like, what company that exists today would you like to be like someday? So it's nice to have something like that to kind of envision.
Well, I mean, if I had made $1 billion, I'd be like Omidyar's goal. But I didn't, and I won't. And it's funny because I don't really want to.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, now that I like there to be a business, but money doesn't really
get you motivated.
No, not at all.
I had a coach though once tell me, it's like, you're gonna get taken advantage around money because it doesn't drive you at all, because you're so like care about what you're passioned about or what you're interested in.
And I'm learning. So I'm learning from other
and you
people.
don't know what it'll open up. Like that's what I said. If I had tried to go into venture, I probably wouldn't have got there. But because it came to me, it turned into something, and I was like, wow, these are great 5 years, and I wouldn't have been anything I had thought of on my own.
Like the idea of applying to a job, or like a resume, like what is? I've never even seen my diploma. I don't even know. It wouldn't be useful anyway. But I don't know.
But that is cool about the Valley. Is like eventually that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You're still got 3 job offers, and people might not even know what you did really.
The person who inspired me to that is Nolan Bushnell, a friend of mine, founder of Atari.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've never looked at a resume, even when he hired Steve Jobs, and he's like, I've never looked at a resume, and I'm like, yeah, I think resumes are bullshit. Like, it has nothing to do with really what that person can do and what they. And I think in that sense.
Yeah, it doesn't convey strengths. Because I would always say like, well, people ask me, what do I need to do to prepare to be an inventor or something? And I'm like, well, I'm the wrong story, because there are some resumes that kind of fit the bill or ways of approaching that are good. But for the most part, I'm like, one of the best venture capitalists, Mike Martz, was a journalist for the New York Times.
This is going to be funny. Do you know Stephanie Palmieri?
Yes, she's
great.
Have you heard her story? No, she wanted to go into venture, though, right?
Yeah. She basically created this job for herself.
Yeah.
Just bugging Jeff.
In fact, talking about you asked how do I see deals? I wrote her about a woman entrepreneur. I was like, do you want to see this? And then she wrote me back, no, but have you seen this one of ours, which is a woman backed? And so she's great.
You guys should create a club. I called it the Lovely Ladies of Silicon Valley. Women in VC and investment who don't know how they ended up there. But that'd be funny.
Well, what is interesting about it though, the last time I saw stuff was at a lunch that was put together by a small seed tech fund guy. who was looking for an associate, and he, I might be getting the numbers wrong, but he got 500 resumes for an associate at his tech fund, because people want to get into this. I'm not sure why I went to it. It's like it's stressful to pick companies and winners.
It's glamorous.
No, people think it's out to be something way better than it is. Anyway, so but he only got I think under 30, I want to say, women applied of all that. So he was like, what the fuck? Like this. I don't know if that's like I'm just talking here. Yeah. But he couldn't. He was like, I can't believe this. So then he wrote all his women friends. How do I get more? And he got through the networks. He got 100 to apply out of 500. Then he said okay, and he could bring in a few that qualified. But it's back to some of the lean in and different stuff. It's holding your own self back of what's possible and not envisioning. And so, I'm totally, when you ask me what I'm going to do next, that's why I don't have a clear, because I also think, you just did the meditation, so I'll be a little spiritual for a little, the universe kind of comes to you with things that if you're too closed off, you wouldn't have even considered them.
Can I suggest something?
Yeah.
So, this is education for entrepreneurs, which is important. But the answer in the Middle East is not that. The answer is a solid, unified angel network. And for some odd reason, I've met more female angels than male angels in the Middle East.
Interesting.
And so what we're actually going to be putting together is a angel boot camp.
Okay, yeah,
And so I would love to get you involved. And so the idea is this. We want to have the companies that we pick from the Middle East come present here.
Okay.
The angels there pre-commit money to how Jason Calgains was at launch.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money, $1,000, $5,000. Somewhat like what's the girl in New York, Natalia?
Oh yeah, she's doing I know.
So the idea is
where she trains angels.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that the angels come here, they go through deal flow here that we filter and the Middle Eastern companies, and create kind of this cross
that's cool. I like
investment
it.
process.
Yeah.
And again, for some reason, I've met more female angels there, which is still not a lot, but we want to help with that, because there's obviously a lot of high net worth individuals, families and princesses and women, but what's really interesting is the female entrepreneurs there are super motivated and super fired up, and they're like rock stars. And I can tell you, it's been really, really interesting. So I'll tell you one story and then we can wrap it up. So I get to Dubai again now, and I'd met this guy I was going to couch surf with him, and he's like, you should go talk to these girls. And there's 3 girls in hijab sitting working on their little project. I'm like, what's the deal with them? He's like, they just came back from Antarctica where they did the first TEDx. Yeah. So I go over there and I'm like, hey, didn't I see you guys in Antarctica? They're like, you were there? And I'm like, yeah, I saw you guys. And they're like, really? I'm like, no, just kidding. So here are these 3 girls.
They're 3 women.
3 women.
Not
2
girls.
Sisters. No, one was 16.
I was like, are they girls or women?
Yeah, they were young.
Are they young?
I feel like I'm old.
Yeah.
No, young ladies.
Sorry, I'm giving you a hard time.
Yes, young ladies. So here are these 3 young ladies. 2 of them are sisters. One comes from a billionaire family. They own retail shops. And they talked about the fact that they're working on a platform to connect up-and-coming designers with buyers from stores, right? Which was a problem they were solving for their own family business.
It, yeah.
They had raised 1 million dirhams, so $300,000 for friends and family, and had gotten accepted to go to TEDx in Antarctica. It took them 6 months to convince their dad to let them go to Antarctica. That was
even for us, that's like a crazy place to go. So from there,
you know what I mean? It just, that was kind of the first little impetus for me to say, wow, female entrepreneurship. And by the way, I know this sounds funny, but in the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, female entrepreneurship is the hot topic right now.
Oh, really? That's great.
And there's
a
lot of really, really cool, smart entrepreneurs who just kind of
they're ready to run things.
Ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about this on the drive here today, that I wish part of the accelerator it could be half and half So that's our goal. That we're
Yeah,
gonna shoot for.
I just had a great entrepreneur who wrote me a couple of months ago and said, hey, we need to add, they're kind of civil engineer, project engineers, we want to add, and we want to add women, we're particular. And I was like, cool, that's awesome. Here's 5 job boards that you should particularly post to. And then I got an announcement like yesterday or something he had hired, and I looked at the list, I'm like, oh wow, he hired 2 women engineers, and I was like, nice. So I wrote him a note. I'm like, nice job. He's like, yeah, we went from 17% women to 40%, and it was just because we looked for it. And these were guys, you know, but it was just important to them. And I think that I wrote him back, and I was like, that's what's going to make a difference is when the men care about this issue. And I think you might know from my bio that I'm president of a nonprofit that encourages girls in science, technology, engineering, math, because that's kind of the pipeline. And but I really do feel when the guys start thinking about it, when my husband went from having he does angel stuff too on the side, and when he went from no women to he has 3 or 4 now, just because it became in his ecosystem of talking about it, and it, you know, it wasn't just because, but he's like, oh, I took another meeting, you know, he's influenced to do it. So
well, again, it's kind of funny because the motivation is actually stronger because the men are inherently a little bit, they have cushy jobs and they're not lazy, but they're not that hungry for change because they're comfortable.
Right.
The women are sitting at home and bored, and
fascinating.
And they like fashion, like the princess of Doha, whatever, just funded a fashion company, and there's all these like really cool things that are being built, maybe even just for women in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I like that angel idea though. There's some good angel, like there's a lot of, I just met with someone this morning who was trying to get more women angels together even here, because they're just not as many, although you're meeting them, but it's good to just the education part. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So we'll get Natalia involved too.
Yeah.
I like what she's doing. We met at South by. I interviewed her there. She's super cool.
Yeah, she's doing good work. There's a whole, like, now I feel like this groundswell of different people kind of attacking the problem in different ways, and and there's good stuff happening.
Very cool.
Yeah.
If I can ask you for a favor.
Yeah.
So can we ask you for like 2 hours of your time in October for the accelerator?
Yeah.
Dope.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, thank you.
So much. Oh,
yeah.
wait, old rule. What's a rule you live by?
Oh, a rule.
Yeah. Hardcore.
I mean, I like so many people, but I do really have a gut, like, not working with people I don't want to. I would say that's like, it depends.
I don't like you.
It happens so rarely, but when it happens, it's like 100% clear to me, like, no. And that's a life too short, because there's so many fabulous people. Yeah. So that's something that I really trust when it happens, because literally it can be once every other year. It's not like something that happens to me, but it's just like, I just get the heebie-jeebies. I'm out of here.
I get that once in a while. Anyway, Rachel, thank you so much. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Really great conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, peace.